throughout my whole life, like courage is a huge word that comes to me. When I was struggling with my mental health in high school, I almost committed suicide 3 times. And something in me had the courage to keep going despite the struggles I was facing. And I had an eating disorder for 10 years. And then I just had this courage to like, I'm going to find a way out of this. I don't know how, but I'm going to.
Welcome to Adapt or Die Transformative Leadership Conversation. This show is made for unpacking executives' pivotal moments that force them into either pivot or to perish. I'm Andreas Pedersen. I'm a former tech CEO that turned into a leadership coach, and I'm also founder of Leaders Adapt. So welcome, Ryanna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
You have written 6 books. You're not even 30 years old. How did that go about? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I have a master's in creative writing. And the reason I wanted to pursue writing came out of my early 20s. I was struggling with self-identity and wanting to know who I am. And so I just started journaling a lot. And then from the journaling, I just had all these poems. And then I was working full-time, as I've told you, with autistic children because I have a bachelor's in psychology. And then somewhere in that early 20s process, I was like, if I'm spending, 40 hours at work and then I'm spending the rest of my free time, like 60, 70 hours just journaling, I clearly have a passion for this. So it sent me back to school and I did a 3-year program at Emerson College. And then pre that program, but then also while in that program, I also was publishing books. So a lot of my early books have a lot of mental health themes because that's what I was going through at that time in my early 20s. And then I ended up writing a novel also in that process. And then I just published my most recent poetry collection last month. So now it's 7 books, which is crazy. And then I'm working on my 8th after me and you work on your book. That's like the next thing I'm doing. So
I love you. For everyone listening, she is definitely a diamond in the rough, very intelligent, have basically done a lot of soul searching throughout her life already. When I met with her and we started working together, I realized she's an older soul. And some of the things where I work with people that are large leaders in big companies, they have not even done the self-reflections that Ryanna have done. But just for the listeners, so people can understand you a little bit better, what are some of the core values of sort of who you are? And if no one else were looking, who are you then?
Right. Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind is definitely authenticity. I feel like growing up, I struggled a lot in school wanting to like be popular and be accepted. And I found myself really leading from my ego first. I was just trying to please and get in the right crowds. And through that process of not being my authentic self, it was like forcing me into a box that I eventually had to like rip off. And then now I just live a life where I'm just authentic to myself. I listen to like my soul. What do I really want out of life? What do I want to do? What speaks to me? And I really follow that internal guidance with everything that I do so that I'm living authentically true to myself. And that's also how I can be true to other people around me. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. I would say the second one is courage. Throughout my whole life, like courage is a huge word that comes to me. When I was struggling with my mental health in high school, I almost committed suicide 3 times. And something in me had the courage to keep going despite the struggles I was facing. And I had an eating disorder for 10 years. And then I just had this courage to like, I'm going to find a way out of this. I don't know how, but I'm going to. Then working in the field of, just any field, I found that I really hated working for anybody else but myself. I hated having to listen to other people or like take directions because I'm very much a go-getter, as you know. Like I love doing things on my own and I am intelligent. I feel like I just don't like listening to authority in a way. And so at some point I had to step out of that robotic role of just like, I am doing this work in the 21st century because I have to make ends meet. Like I was like, no, I have this courage to jump into the unknown and like do my own thing and I'm going to see what happens. And it does take a lot of courage to do that because you have to have a lot of belief in yourself and the belief that you will make it no matter what it is that you're going to do that is going to work out for you. And I think a lot of people who have great ideas don't do that and they stay stuck in jobs or positions that they don't like. But time and time again, I've just found myself going after the courageous thing. And that kind of ties in with resilience, which I would say is definitely another thing that comes to mind for me because of my mental health struggles to get to where I am today, but then also in business as well. It's always been this resiliency of like, I am going to keep pushing and I'm going to make it. I'm going to have books that are bestsellers one day. Like, I don't care if nobody believes me. I believe me. And that's what I need is like the belief in myself to keep going and keep pushing and get one step better, take one step forward. And despite any setback I've had, I've kept going. And the first business I started was actually when I was 22, because that was when I already knew like I had graduated with my bachelor's. I was stepping into that sort of robotic world of like, we must work a job for 30 years and then we will be retired and that's when we have free time. Like I stepped into that and it was just like 3 months in where I had this epiphany of
Mhm.
like, wait, what do I actually want to do? And like, do I like doing this? Like, who am I? What matters to me? I totally just got a
So,
pregnancy brain fart. I don't even remember where I was going.
but I'll help you because here's the thing. I want to take it back. There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
I want to take it back to sort of the challenging part, early days, early years. And it doesn't matter when you go through these challenges in life, but there's something where something happens that just have like there's a trigger. There's something like I'm going to battle and I'm going to battle for me. And
Hmm.
you kind of brushed over it when you were telling your story. Do you know what was that trigger, that moment? And I'm applaud you for mentioning 3 suicide attempts and other things,
Hmm.
but I really am curious because I believe there is something there when people just have had enough with themselves, with others, and there is that trigger, like now it's time to pick up and start fighting. Do you know
Right.
what that moment was for you?
Yeah, I think I know the moment of where I had initially left myself and then also the moment where I decided like I'm gonna be resilient. So initially in seventh grade, what really took me away from myself was being bullied. And
Mhm.
this girl I was best friends with was very mean to me. Like randomly one day I show up at school, she just doesn't like me anymore. And that's basically what drove me to follow my ego. And the driving force behind me was like, I will prove her wrong. I will be popular. And, so that's kind of how I went out. And that is what led to the depression, the eating disorders, and all of that. Then, a way to self medicate was through alcohol, dabbling with marijuana, like things like that, that many teens do, right? So that's what I was doing in my teen years. Binge watching TV, just anything to really get out of my own head and who I was. And the drinking, especially, was what I had an annoyance with because I had seen a lot of people in my own family struggle with alcoholism. And so when I had graduated college when I was 22, I just was kind of doing this same weekly pattern where I'd go to work Monday through Friday from 8 to 6, and then I would get off of work and Friday through Sunday I would drink, and then I would go back to work Monday through Friday. And it really made me feel like a robot in a way. And then when I had that epiphany, the aha, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? When I was driving home from work one day, that was when I was like, enough is enough. Like, I'm done with my own crap. And like, I am the reason why my life is the way it is. I can't put that on anybody else. Like, I take full ownership of me drinking the whole weekend away. Like, that's on me. Like, me doing something that I don't really want to do from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., that's on me. Like, what do I want to do? Like, what would be a route I can do then? What is my purpose? What is my life passion? What do I even like doing? What are my hobbies? I didn't know any of that. And so
Okay.
I basically sought therapy. So that was the moment where it was like, I'm going all in and I'm gonna like deep dive into this enigma maze of like, who am I?
And what age were you at that stage?
22.
22. Okay. I can tell you, Rihanna, there I meet CEOs, I meet entrepreneurs, I meet founders that still cannot answer the questions you just asked yourself at 22. They don't
Yeah.
know who they are. They spend their entire life fighting for results. They spend their entire life changing other people. They say they're pro change when they change others, but
Right.
that's how they became the leader so they can change others so they don't have to change themselves.
Right.
Even last night, I'll give you this. I was talking to, I don't want to disclose who it is. She's a successful CEO. And it's so glaring obvious for me. I just told her, you need to go see a therapist. And she's like, I never done that. She runs a successful company, over 100 million in revenue, refused to go to therapy. So it's mind boggling for me. Tell me the journey through therapy. Tell me how that helped you. Tell me what
Yeah.
tools it gave you.
Yeah. So it was a very intensive program. It was basically a full-time job. So I started working in the afternoons and I went to therapy from 8 to 4, 8 to
Wow.
4, Monday through Friday. And so we did everything under the sun from like, we did cognitive behavioral therapy, we did talk therapy, we did group therapy, we did personal therapy, like one-on-one with a therapist. And then we also did exercise therapy. And then we did breath work and meditation. And I would say specifically in the breath work sessions where there's like a very specific pattern of like carrying the breath into the stomach, into the throat and out, into the stomach, throat and out. I don't know the science behind what it does to the brain, but it gets you very present in the moment. And it was through those sessions. I mean, yes, everything, but definitely in that where I was having a lot of aha moments of like really the fact that I am the owner and creator of my life. It's that anything I complain about or anything that like, oh, why didn't that go my way? Like, no, it like nothing is on anyone else. Like it is literally all on you. And I think I also learned a lot about not holding on to shame in therapy. I
Mhm.
had carried so much shame up through that 22nd year of my life. And I remember sitting down in one group therapy session and just like awkwardly for the first time, like sharing something like dark and deep going on in my mind and being like, hey, like this is what I'm experiencing right now. And I'm feeling a lot of like gross shame at just sharing this. And the therapist was like, oh, thanks so much for like being bold and bringing that. And then she's like, raise your hand if you've ever felt the way that Ryanna just described. And every single person in the room raised their hand. And then it was like another aha, like, oh, I'm not on an island by myself. Pretty much we all experience a lot of the same things, like maybe not in the same ways or through the same mediums. But if 8 women in a room have all felt that exact same way from 8 different life paths, 8 different ethnicities, sexual orientations, and we've all felt that, this is just part of the human experience. And that was another huge aha of I had felt for so long that I was the only one experiencing this, that I was an island on my own. I kept everything inside. And now I had the ability to reach out to other people. And now that's a large part of what I do is basically sharing my story and being vulnerable and open with who I am. Vulnerability also, I would say, is another core aspect of who I am because it's like that moment for me in therapy where people kind of get that aha of like, oh, like they're so open about this, or like, oh wow, they've gone through that too. Like I'm not alone. And the more that we have that in the world, then the more it encourages other people, to come out, step out, share your story, step into that courage. And then we change the world one person at a time.
I agree. And vulnerability, you and I talked about that multiple times also now that we're writing the book together, or you're helping me here write it.
Yeah.
I think it's something for American men, it's not something that is seen as a strength historically, or at least what I've seen. In Europe, men are much more open and vulnerable because we believe the more we share, the more we can help one another. And it was a great example. You were vulnerable in that moment in therapy. You felt alone and realized everyone was the same. I can tell you, it's the same when you're part of CEO peer groups. It's the same when you go to leadership training. It's the same. Whatever you do, it's always the thing. If it stays up here and you're not sharing with others, it's extremely hard to overcome it by yourself. Vulnerable, true connection, that's the recipe. So I love that you share that. But
Mhm.
here's something I'm kind of curious about. Tell me the pivot from you're not going to therapy, you're working a job. Like, where is this the time frame where you're really into writing, or when does the whole writing aspect really kick off?
Yeah.
And when do you publish your first book?
So I started writing when I went to college. So I'm originally from Southern California.
Hmm.
Because I was going through all that mental health stuff, I thought the solution was I'm going to get as far away from this town as possible and then I'll feel better. So I flew across the country. I started going to school in North Carolina. And of course, all those problems came with me. And I had that aha moment of like, oh, this is personal. Like, this is me. It's not the town I grew up in. And so I started writing because of all the depression and anxiety and eating disorders. I just was journaling in my dorm room my freshman year. And then I ended up joining the literary magazine that year and being an editor on it. So that was where like the interest started. And then when I graduated, it was still at the point where I was just doing a lot of journaling. And then the boyfriend that I had at the time he was actually the one who encouraged me. He was like, "Oh, why don't you just compile all your poems together and publish a book?" And I was like, "Whoa, like I can't do that. Like it's not that good." Like, and I just had a lot of those uh imposter syndrome or like self-sabotaging type thoughts. And then and he was working on starting his own business. And so he was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "If this is your passion and what you want to do, just put it out there. It doesn't matter like what anyone thinks." And I was like, "Okay, you're right. Like I'll try it." And so I will always be thankful to him for that because he definitely pushed me for that first collection. So I published it right at that time when I was in therapy. I was toward the end of therapy that you would like graduate from the program. So I'd been there for
Mhm.
4 months and I was right around the corner from graduating, and I published my first collection called We Are Human, which is all about basically what we talked about, that idea of everyone raising their hand of like, oh my gosh, this is a collective experience. So yeah, that's the first book.
How did you see the changing of your writing? I mean, how much did that change after sort of the first publishing? You're now through therapy. Like, how did you go from 1 to 5? Can you just recap
Right.
that story so I truly understand sort of the phases you went through as you were sort of
Yeah.
adapting into this new role, personality, life?
Yeah. So We Are Human is about it's like the start of the healing journey, realizing that, oh, I'm not alone. It's not like I am human. We're all here together. So We Are Human is the first one. The second one is Heart's Bruise Never Break. I kept finding that I was repeating the same patterns in romantic relationships, and I kept attracting very narcissistic men. And I was kind of like bowing underneath them. Their way was the only way that would go. They were like cheating, like lots of double standards. And I went through a lot of heartbreaks of just like, I never chose the guys who treated me nicely. I always wanted the chaos. So Heart's Bruise Never Break was the journey of me basically leaving relationships like that and learning to become my own best friend and have self-confidence and be okay being a single woman. Because that's definitely something I don't know about women in other countries, but I know women in America, I would say from the Disney and what we see growing up, like we're very much taught, you're not complete without a man. And so that's kind of what you live by. And in that journey was me realizing like I can have a great life and like never, even if I never end up with anyone. So Heart's Bruise Never Break is the journey out of the romantic. And then the next one was My Cup of Coffee. And that's basically all the things you think about as you're sipping on your morning cup of coffee, like the good, the bad in life, like the awkward, the stuff you wish you could forget, all of that. And so, and then there's also some like wisdom in there too, like wisdom, I would say like spirituality comes into play in that book. And so there's like more development. I would say that one's more like existential, and asking those questions of like, who am I? Why do I do this? Why do I like this? Do I actually like this? Like that kind of stuff. Then the next one, The Door Between Us, is about mending the relationship with yourself. And even on the front cover, it's like a grayscale image of me and then a me that's like bloomed full in color. And the one is like really sad, the other's really happy, and they're like facing each other. And that was the bridge of like, how do I go from self-hate to self-love? And how do I go from being like my biggest like sabotager to like my biggest supporter? So that's really helpful, I think, for anyone who battles with that internal journey. That book is really, really good for them. The next one I wrote was a book of love poems from yet another unhealthy relationship. And that was the last unhealthy relationship I had. It's called Skinny Dipping with Patience. I was so patient with this person who just, we were not a good match. Then I published my novel, Searching for Emiliano. And that's my favorite book only because that one required so much resilience and courage and grit because I had never written a book before. And then I just jumped into it. I was halfway through my master's degree and I literally worked diligently on that book. Like I'm talking 80 hours a week. You get paid $0 an hour doing that. I just was in school. Like it was also partly during COVID. And I just like went balls to the wall, like 80 hours a week, editing, revising. I wrote the first draft in 4 months and then I continued to edit for like 2 years. There was like 180 drafts before I finally published it. So
Crazy.
I'm very proud of that book for sure.
Is that the one that ended up in the 100 bestsellers?
No, the one that actually frequently goes into the like 100 bestsellers in women's poetry is We Are Human, my first book. Like that one's been read more than any of my others, which is very ironic because it's my first one. And to me, it's also, your writing gets better as you go. So that's definitely like not my best one in terms of quality of writing, but I guess it speaks to a lot of people. Maybe it's because like a lot of people it's like a journey they can relate to.
Sometimes I feel that And I want to hear about the last two quickly as well,
Yeah.
but I just want to say that sometimes I feel that a lot of people resonate with books where they can identify who they are. And if your
Mhm.
book, first book, was written while you were going through therapy, that's sort of the baseline. That's where people start climbing that ladder in
Right.
mindset, which means that more people are going to be there than are going to be at the sort of spiritual understanding your level you're at today, and that I have
Right.
how I have got to know you throughout our process together.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Tell me about the last ones a little bit quickly, and then I have a little bit provocative question for you potentially.
Okay. So the last one is The Nature of It All, which is my most recent collection, which I just published on Earth Day. And that is so different than all the others because it's also the first one I published since getting my master's in creative writing with an emphasis in poetry. So it's very deep in understanding the knowledge and craft of poetry and how to structure poems. And that one really is about my whole mid-20s. So it's kind of like a coming of age, but not like that early coming of age, but more of like into adulthood. And it's very spiritually based. It's lots of nature poems, and it really entails like a lot of my mid-20s when I went on a lot of solo trips to the national parks. I did a lot of solo hiking and camping. And so, of course, when you spend a lot of time with yourself, you do get to know yourself really well and get really comfortable with yourself. And so that's what that journey is.
I just want to say for the listeners here that the steps and why I think Ryanna's story is important, the story of her books and the order. Ryanna, now that we have been writing the book together, my book, have
Hmm.
you realized how much similarities there are in the steps of what I am coaching and helping other with, especially the women that are
Oh,
or
yeah.
women clients?
Yeah, 100%. When I have gone through like each chapter, and I was doing it all chronological, like it's really interesting, especially as a woman who is so interested in psychology and like understanding the mind, like working through your book, because these are like things I have done myself, like not necessarily in the business context, but as I've gone through, I'm like, it is really interesting because it kind of goes back to that idea of like we are human. It is a collective experience. It's like a very similar process.
I love it. Okay, I was kidding. It's not a provocative question, but why did you label your company the way you did? Tell me about how the name came about and why it's so important to you.
Yeah, great question. So, All with Heart is a lifestyle brand that, as you will know as we get further into the business part of it, partly I don't know what I'm doing. I have no business degree, and I just know that I have a passion for the things that I love to do. But All with Heart, basically the message behind it is inspiring people to live all with heart. The heart specifically stands for helping through education and art, looking to expand also to recreation and therapy, and that will equal heart. So through the process of my life and the mental health that I dealt with, and at one point wanting to not even be here on this planet, feeling like I was alone on this island and struggling to find any like real friends or real people, basically, like having a lot of familial trauma, generational trauma. Like I was so low at, that age 16, 17, where I almost was willing to take my life 3 different times. And now, you look on the other side of that mirror, I'm 28. Have healed those relationships in my family. I have real friendships. I have the most amazing partner. I'm pregnant with my first child. For anyone listening, I'm 7 months pregnant. And I have so many hobbies. Like I just love being here on planet Earth. And so what I always get brought back to is this idea that there are people in all different ages that are somewhere stuck, maybe not in the same way I was stuck, but they are stuck in where I was at that 16, 17, where like they're not happy, they're not satisfied, they don't want to be here. They feel like a robot every day, getting up, going to a job that they hate, and they don't know how to get out of whatever they're in, or they don't know how to get out of their own mental shackles. And so basically I'm here today for those people, and like I want to help those people get to that other side that I now live on. And the way I got here was with my heart, all with heart. And so that's what I am aiming to do with others, is give back and help them know this world the way I know this world now, which is this most beautiful place that I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to write poetry, that I get to do a job that I love, that I get to go hiking and camping and running and play soccer. And I just want other people to also feel that joy.
If you were to give someone else listening a tip, I mean, you've done a emotional intelligence journey, and you went deep and came back out happy, fulfilled at a very early age. Like I
Hmm.
said, I work with CEOs and founders who are in their 50s and they still haven't got that level of life fulfillment. They haven't been able to kill the imposter syndrome. They haven't been, or they're an insecure overachiever, or they might have confidence, but they lack the self worth. What's one advice you would give to these people?
The best advice I give anyone is be honest with yourself. Stop putting those blinders up and stop acting like it's not there. Because the more you do that, the farther you're going to keep walking along that path that's not your path. The more unhappy you're going to get, and the more you're going to keep looking for those instant gratification ways out of that. And the moment you actually decide that you're going to be honest with yourself is like the moment where you can actually pivot and make that change, because you're willing to like look in the mirror, see yourself, see where you are, and be like, I'm not happy. And then you can start to make the steps to figure out why you're not. Because what I've come to find in family members, friends, or people that I just meet in life is I can tell the ones who are not actually happy, and it's because they're not being honest with themselves. And I think it's because there's also this like shame and guilt that they might feel underneath that. And so I think the advice also goes along with, hey, you don't have to feel shame. You know, being human is not easy, and we didn't come with, there's no playbook or rule book. There's no life plan that got dealt to you with like, here's what you need to do. You know, you're doing it on the fly. And if you're still here, you're doing a good job. You know, you're alive. So at any moment, you can decide you want to be honest, and you also don't have to carry that shame of whatever you feel or the mistakes you've made. You can have a little grace for yourself and then just decide, hey, I'm going to pivot and walk a new path.
I love that. One of my coaches and mentors, she forces people to pick a word of the year, and she taught me the word brutiful, which is a combination of beautiful and brutal. And I think the way life is hard, but it's also very beautiful. But okay, so you have gone through obviously challenge, you adapted, you're now very successful, you're about to become a mother. I've said congratulations many times, and you stopped generational problems like you because you decided to deal with it. You didn't let it carry on to the next generation. But let's pivot over and talk a little bit about your business side of it.
Mhm.
What is the hardest struggle being a solo founder and a solopreneur?
Uh, the biggest struggle for me is not having enough money to do what I want to do and not knowing how to get money to do those things that I want to do. Like, I would like to expand my business. I would like to actually have like products and merch on hand. I can't afford to do that. So then I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can like apply for a business grant. And I've looked into things. I've gotten rejected from things. I don't know if I can take out a business loan. I don't have any business knowledge at all. So that's the hardest part, is like, I can be very intelligent and I can have this self-awareness and I can be a great writer, but I don't have a degree or knowledge in that field to be like, here's how I can now actually take this message and bring it out into the world, you know, because I have this, but it's just me and my Southern California casita. Like, I have so much to share. I don't know how to get it out there, basically.
If we do a little bit of quick hot seat, I'll ask you a couple of questions. I'm not sure I can give you advice. That's a very broad question, and I get that question from even people who have money in my book, and they still don't understand how to commercialize something. But when you think of sales and salespeople, what's your first emotion that comes to your mind?
Ooh, I feel the sales, uh, depending on how it's done, but I would say for the most part, to me, it makes me think of like this pushiness or like this awkwardness. You know, like I think of when you're walking through the mall and someone's like, you want to try this? You want to come in the store? You want to like put this on? And like, hey, and this will be like, it's like, like, no, thank you. I'm just trying to walk down and go buy that hat. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, you have like people are trying to go do this thing, and then it just seems like it can be this pushy, like this. And it's like, no thanks.
Okay, so another question. I'll give you a reply very shortly. Another question. Let's pretend that you've been at the bar from the days you were partying. You were not drinking. Your friend was obviously too drunk. They were going to drive home. What do you do then?
Well, I tell them like, you're absolutely not gonna go drive home. You're drunk and I'm sober, so I'm gonna get behind the wheel. You're gonna hand me your keys right now. Like, basically, they're not driving. I'm driving.
Okay, so you drive them home. How do you
Mhm.
feel now?
Well, I feel good because I know that they're safe and I know that they're better off that I took control.
Okay, so what if I told you we can draw the parallel here on the second story and how you feel? That's sales.
Right.
You sold them on something that is better for them. If it's a win-win, so if you have value to provide, you're not selling them in your mind. The problem I meet a lot of founders have with is they don't want to do founder selling because they've been sold by sleazy car salesmen in the past. So they
Right.
correlate an emotion with what sales means for them. And often when it comes to building a business and ramping it up, you have to sell. You have some marketing, but it all comes down to founder selling. The problem is, even if you're raising capital, whatever you're offering them, you have to recalibrate your brain and say, no, I'm actually helping this person. This poor person is
Mm.
worse off if I'm quiet. But if I tell them how to get from the bar to home, I have actually done them a service and I should feel good about myself. If you act with integrity, if you act with a vulnerable mindset, and you really stand for what your core values are for your business, which is basically to get other people's, like if you want to help them either with their stories or you want to sell your own books, you're helping someone else. There's a reason why people are buying your book. What I think you do wrong, Ryanna, and also I know this is a little bit of a cheat here because I've been every
Right.
time sales comes up or marketing or promotion, you equate it with sleazy car salesperson.
Right. Yeah, when you had just said right as you had started the metaphor, like the second metaphor, I was like, "Oh, I could already see the parallel I was walking into." And now I'm like, "Oh my God, like that was like a because that's so true. Like especially with what I do, like it's not a sleazy car salesman type business. Like what I'm doing is literally helping people save them from themselves, like save their own life. So that is helpful.
It
Really helpful.
is it is a mindset shift, and often to the quick coaching moment here for a lot of people who are still in the situation where they know they should be selling, but they choose not to. Stop equating it with the emotion you have tied to it. Separate the emotional reaction to what is going on compared to the logical thing that is going on. Ryanna, your business will not scale. You will not have be afford to do things unless you sell. And you have to sell because you're helping the other person. You're not selling them something. You're either having them read your book and you're saving someone years of pain
Right.
compared to going at it yourself. You took all the hard journey. You're giving them the quick tip. You
Right.
fought this for 10 to 15 years. Your
Right.
book, reading it, understanding it, let's say it's 2 weeks reading, and they have now saved 5 years of their life. How do you put a price on that?
Right. Exactly.
It's not selling, you're helping them.
Right. That's what I need to do is change just those words from selling to helping. Boom. Now I
Mhm.
can go out like it would change so much probably about how I show up,
Yeah.
you know.
Is the number one trick I teach people. A lot of founders I work with, they're out raising capital for their businesses.
Yeah.
And for them, it's like, oh, but what if they know all the things that can go wrong. They believe in their product, they believe in the service, they love their business, their company. But for some reason, they're so afraid of taking someone else's money. And I always tell them, no, you're helping them. What if you hit a home run and you were
Right.
selfish and it didn't give them the opportunity to invest with you? Like, are you crazy? Of course. Like, and
Right.
what if you had a friend and you didn't tell them about the investment opportunity? You went and made a ton of money and you didn't bring them along on the journey? They're adults. They can make their own decisions. Just because you helped them read sell doesn't mean they have to say yes. They're still an
Right.
adult. You can't take responsibility for their actions.
Right.
Awesome. Ryanna, where can people dive into your work? Where can they find you? What's your website? What type of help do you offer for others?
So on Instagram, my Instagram is at soul-led-wanderess. And my website is www.allwithheart.com. So on my website, I have all of my books are available on there. And then I also have merch, whether it's like shirts or stickers or just poetry prints, like things that involve my words, basically, that and designs that I've made that are all with that image of like living all with heart. So it's basically like merch or mugs or things that can remind you to live all with heart. So I've got a lot of different stuff on there. I also offer self-development coaching on there for anyone who wants to go on that journey with someone who has done that journey from A to B. And then I also offer a lot of different writing services. I do copy editing, I do ghostwriting, I do freelance writing. So if you are someone who has a story to tell or you want to get your story in the world, but you're not someone who is a writer, that's where I can come in and I can help you with that. And all my books also are available on Amazon. Some of them are also on like barnesandnoble.com, target.com. So anywhere you get your books, you can just look up my name, see if it carries it. For sure, Amazon does, and my website as well.
And I will also say, as a major reference to for someone I've worked with you, Ryanna's work morale and work ethic is insane. I will just share this story. I hope I don't embarrass you now. We started working together. You go, I'm pregnant, and I go, okay, but we can continue the book after. Like, I didn't set a timeline, and you're like, no, I'm going to get your book done before I pop this baby. So we are basically writing a book within 2.5 months or 3 months. I lost track. And you are working 24/7. And not only are you delivering quantity, you're delivering quality as well. And you're extremely picky and making sure that all the stories in the book are accurately captured and representative of who I am and all the co-authors. So, and I've worked with a lot of writers. You are really good at what you do. And yeah, I can't wait to launch the book with you.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Ryanna. It has been an awesome conversation. You have impressed me many times. Your emotional intelligence, the journey you have been on, and your eagerness to help others. I wish the world had more people like you that led more with heart. Yeah, again, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Ryanna, for being on the show. And thank you, everyone that tuned in and listened to Adapt or Die. If today's conversation helped you think differently, share it with one more leader that really could listen to the benefit or listen to this and get the benefits from Ryanna's story. And maybe by doing so, unlocking a new piece of their life. Also, please drop a 5-star review on the podcast. It really helps me and it helps others discover the show. For those of you who want to see this again, or they want other resources or other details about what I do at Leaders Adapt, you go to leadersadapt.com, and there's a bunch of materials on there on the topic that Ryanna and I were talking about. And remember that in leadership, we adapt or thrive, or we don't survive. Until next time, thank you.